Hey horror fans, welcome back to Room 237, coming at you with the first of a series of videos, kind of a mini marathon I'm doing. And that is of Blood Feast from 1963. Yep, 1963. This it's not the first movie directed by Herschell Gordon Lewis. He was known for a wide variety of films, a number of films prior to this, mostly exploitation, but this was his first, bloody splatter horror exploitation films. And many people consider this to be the first splatter film. Movie that is just gory for the sake of being gory. Before George Romero, before Lucio Fulci, even though Fulci was making films at this time, there was Herschell Gordon Lewis. He only made a few between 63 and 72, and then a couple after 2002. But, yeah, this was the first, and, I went through a period where I wanted to get as many as possible. There's still 2 or 3 other ones I would like to get at some point. It's been so long that I have to go back and rewatch them, but from what I've remembered, this one was always my favorite. And, I mean, it's only 67 minutes, a very short film. It does feel very 60s. I mean, it's very vibrant, bright colors, 60s hair. It is very tongue-in-cheek. It is quite silly. A lot of overacting or poor acting. But, it's an exploitation film. It's not really supposed to be great. But basically, it opens up with this woman in her house. She gets into the bath, and this wild-eyed man kills her and hacks her leg off with a machete. And I will say, for the low budget and the time, the gore effects do look pretty good. The blood is pretty thick and pretty vibrant, sort of like what was seen in a lot of Italian films, which even kind of came after this. Because this was around the time that Giallo was starting, which it came out a year before Blood and Black Lace. I was just reading about something. Yeah, all the movies I have are from Something Weird Video, which has most of his movies. Something Weird was an exploitation film that he did, not really gore or horror or splatter. But Basket Case was also released by Something Weird, even though it's not a Herschell Gordon Lewis film. But the guy that's doing these killings is this guy named Fuad Ramses, and he runs Fuad Ramses Catering. This woman, Mrs. Fremont, goes to see him to cater a party for her daughter, Suzette, and she chooses an Egyptian theme. And he tells her that this Egyptian choice of hers hasn't been served in over 5,000 years. It needs some special ingredients, but he assures her that it will be done in time. And he has like a Egyptian altar in the back of the store because he worships this Egyptian goddess named Ishtar. And then throughout the film, it's just him killing women and these puzzled detectives who just really feel like 60s detectives, like, gosh darn, we missed him. And of course, a movie like this, you really watch for the gore. I mean, there's this one couple who are on the beach. When he attacks them, he knocks out the boyfriend. stabs the girlfriend and he cuts her brain out. Great brain effects. This one sailor drops his wife off at a hotel. He comes in, and this is one of the more famous images. He he rips out her tongue. It's like a lot of acting like this. And this is the kind of silly acting. Very slow, like she keeps moving her mouth like she doesn't know how to play dead. So like brain, the leg, the tongue, these are all ingredients. That's why he's going after these women. And it's called his blood feast. This Egyptian ceremony is called blood feast. One of the detectives attends this weekly Egyptian lecture where we get the history of Ishtar, which is all exposition. But the detective happens to be dating Suzette, so that's how these characters are connected. And we do see like a bunch of people like reading newspapers. Like you get this really sort of 60s, almost like giallo camera work. Like people reading newspaper, leg cut off. Then we see someone else. The camera zooms right in on the newspaper. Everyone's talking about this maniac that's on the loose. This other woman he abducts and takes to his Egyptian altar. And this is a funny scene because he's whipping her, but he's whipping her with a towel. And it's a very limp towel that he's just kind of very limp wrist hitting her. But the sound effect is a there's like blood smeared on her back. I read about the reception about this film. The family decides that the party's going to continue because Trudy was the woman that was getting whipped. She was part of that family. The Suzette Fremont. Then we find out, and pretty much essentially, Fuad Ramses wrote this book on Ishtar, and these women that have been killed, the detective deduces that they've all asked him for a copy of his book, or they all had a copy of his book. It was very, kind of flimsy about how they came to it. So they figured out that Fuad they started looking to him. They find Trudy's body all over the table. But it's all, her body's intact, but there's like a hand here, body parts here, and like it's the leftovers. Because we see him preparing the blood feast. At the party, he tries to have Suzette lay on the table. And he's going to decapitate her as the final sacrifice. But she keeps sitting up, thinking it's silly. And it's at that point, police come in. They chase him. He gets into the back of a garbage truck to try to escape. The blades, the garbage truck is running, and it crushes him. And another just one of those funny, weird editing, early 60s and prior, or even since. He's in the truck and he goes like, but we hear a scream even though his mouth's not open. And like he goes from that, and the next shot is like his hand outside the truck with the garbage. And the detectives are like, oh, he died like the garbage he was. So I mean, it's a very silly movie. It's very tongue-in-cheek, but that was sort of Gordon Lewis's approach. He wanted to make them silly. There are some, like Taste of Fear, which is like a horror film. One I don't have, one I've been looking for a while. So I mean, even though it is silly, the gore effects are pretty well done. It quickly became known for its gore and violence. It was one of the first movies to show people dying with their eyes open. You know, there was the 1931 film Public Enemy, and then Psycho as well, because there was that shot of Janet Leigh. Some people call him the original machete-wielding madman. So a lot of people sort of had the same kind of approach. You know, it's not good, but it's the first of its type. But this is also the first of Gordon Lewis's Blood Trilogy, which I do have all three. With 2000 Maniacs and Color Me Blood Red, where blood itself, other than gore, plays a huge part in the story. You know, it has a 42 on Rotten Tomatoes. An inept, shocker, incredibly crude. But, you know, it is kind of fun. It's silly. It's like he's not trying to be scary or anything. I've always thought of Herschell Gordon Lewis as, and this is me saying this, not something I'm reading. He's sort of like a 60s version of early Peter Jackson. Early Peter Jackson, like Bad Taste, Dead Alive, Meet the Feebles. They might not be great films, they're incredibly low budget, but they're highly, highly, highly entertaining. I love like, Dead Alive is one of my top 10 favorites. I love Bad Taste. They're incredibly gory and bloody, for the sake of being gory and bloody. His films aren't as good or entertaining, but there's still plenty of entertainment value. And, you know, Herschell Gordon Lewis was the first one to really kind of say, push it. You know, let's just do blood and gore and have fun with it. So much so that he was given the nickname the Godfather of Gore, which was also given to Lucio Fulci. He was like the American Fulci, but I think his career was severely overshadowed by George Romero, who's also been called the Godfather of Splatter, along with the Godfather of Zombies. I think story-wise, like Color Me Blood Red and The Wizard of Gore is a little bit better. I just don't know what it is about Blood Feast that I always liked more. Maybe on these rewatchings my opinion will change. But for right now, yeah, Blood Feast is probably my favorite. So stay tuned for more. I have 4 more Herschell Gordon Lewis films to do. And, you know, feel free to let me know what you guys think of Herschell Gordon Lewis. I haven't really met anyone else or talked to anyone else that has even heard his name. There's a documentary on him called Godfather of Gore. I think it's just Godfather of Gore. But yeah, feel free to let me know what you think of Blood Feast or his other films, and look out for more reviews of him in the future. Anyway, thank you for watching.